Let's start with Duluth City Hall. It's a bustling place, people going in and coming out all day long. And the top brass certainly seem busy, but are they worth over 3 times what you're earning? Here's the salaries of some non-elected city department heads. They range from just over $55,000 to almost $70,000 a year. According to the Minnesota Department of Economic Security, the average salary for a taxpayer in northeastern Minnesota is $21,900. That's just under a third what those department heads get. Of course, we all aren't department heads, but a spokesperson for the Minnesota Department of Economic Security says the average executive salary in northeastern Minnesota still falls far short of the average government executive salary. The average Northland upper-level executive is earning around $36,000 a year, about half what most city department heads are getting, and you're footing the bill.
If I were a private sector employee, I'd be certainly looking at trying to get a job in City Hall.
And we haven't even mentioned the benefits for these city employees. City leaders tell us their perks and packages are worth 40% of their salaries. So taking a look back at our salaries chart, you'll see those department heads are now earning an average of almost $100,000 a year. The average private sector benefits package is worth only about 15% of their annual salary. And the gap is just as wide over at St. Louis County. The average department head salary is over $70,000 there. That's more than 3 times what the average Northland taxpayer earns and almost twice what the average Northland executive makes. County department heads' benefit packages are a little closer to yours. They vary from 15% to 20% of their annual salaries. Adjusted for bennies, the salaries look like this. It's this glaring difference between the people who are paying these salaries, the taxpayers, and government workers that's causing some lawmakers to question whether it's fair.
You know, how can this group of people support this other group of people who are way up here in wages when their wages are down here and the other wages are way up here? How do they support them?
With the federal axe hanging over state and local units of government, some lawmakers say it's time to make some changes, and government salaries are ripe for the slashing. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
State official could be paid.
Representative Steve Wenzel thinks taxpayers in Minnesota are overburdened. He says the average worker just doesn't earn enough money to pay the kind of taxes they're asked to fork over to support government workers' salaries.
The situation is becoming aggravated and the disparities are widening.
A Channel 6 News investigation shows a huge gap between public and private workers. In this case, Duluth and St. Louis County versus Northland executives. Representative Wenzel has drafted a bill calling for state-enforced salary caps for government workers. But hard as he lobbies, his bill is getting nowhere. Representative Dick Pello looked at county workers' salaries throughout the state and said they were too high. So he drafted a bill calling for limits there.
I think there's a lot of people out there who are just as well qualified that will work for a lot less money.
But he hasn't been able to drum up much support among other lawmakers for his plan either. Lawmakers who support these bills say they won't necessarily solve the problem of public-private salary unbalance, but they say they will at least serve to draw attention to the situation. Government spokesmen say it will just make it impossible to attract quality people.
But when people begin to limit your pay and artificially limit your pay and say, no, we're not going to allow you to receive any more money, well, that tells you that it might be a place you don't want to work. And it will discourage good people from coming into a community and working.
Many legislators are dependent on the government officials in their districts to help them get reelected.
And I'm telling my colleagues who are getting enormous pressure from the public interest lobbies like the League of Cities, the Minnesota Association of Counties. Hennepin County spends millions of dollars to hire well-heeled lobbyists to come down here to persuade us to spend more money so that they can pay these enormous salaries.
The bill's authors say that pressure has made it extremely difficult to get legislative support for limiting those government workers' salaries. In St. Paul, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
The motion prevails.